I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right for his first name.
That's correct.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thanks for all your patience for being our most wonderful closing remark startup showcase.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. It's very kind. This is a very well-run organization, it seems, and my first time being part of it, and it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you. My name is Dr. Aury Nagy. I'm a neurosurgeon. In June of 2020, I started this company, CovInnovations. We applied for patents on a drug product that appears to cure late-stage COVID. Human data shows a 68% reduction in mortality in hospitalized patients. Comparable drugs recently purchased by the US government were purchased for over $5 billion. That's the Pfizer drug, an antiviral, effective only in the early stage, so not as good as ours, I would argue. FDA is currently providing us guidance on the pathway to get investigational new drug approval. BARDA has offered to pay for our phase 3 trials once we get IND approval from the FDA. Our board includes a pharma veteran with over 30 years of executive leadership experience in the pharmaceuticals. Billions of dollars have been made on the sale of vaccines to prevent the spread of COVID, and billions more have been spent on antiviral drugs that only work in the very early stage of COVID-19 infection. But there's a multi-billion-dollar challenge that remains unaddressed. When will we have a drug that can be used in the sickest ICU patients to cure COVID-19? Dexamethasone is our best weapon right now, but not all studies agree that it improves survival. Something better is desperately needed. Whatever that successful treatment is, it will rapidly become the global standard of care. So to understand what that treatment needs to be, you need to understand COVID-19's lethal mechanism. Once someone catches COVID, the virus spreads, patient develops an overactive immune response, and for many people that leads to death. Our drug is designed to disrupt viral spread and to halt the overactive immune response. We therefore call it Covarist. In a 2020 clinical study of 121 patients hospitalized for COVID-19 induced hypoxia, an early version of Covarist demonstrated a 68% reduction in mortality, a 37% reduction in length of hospital stay, and a 93.5% overall survival rate. The results were statistically significant. If the data bear out in a randomized controlled trial with our IND, this could save millions of lives and save hospitals many billions of dollars. So Covarist is a drug product made of 2 active pharmaceutical ingredients. Each API acts as an anti-inflammatory and as an antiviral. And since they act by different mechanisms, their effects are synergistic. Each API treats the side effects of the other, so lower overall doses of each are required. Each API induces liver metabolism of the other, so combining them in one formulation prevents toxicity. Each API is an off-patent small molecule currently FDA approved for other uses with broad safety profiles, so regulatory hurdles to demonstrate safety of the FDA can be reduced. All this means that we're likely to be approved for phase 3 trials by the FDA quickly. We've applied for a fast track and emergency use, fast track and accelerated approval, and a breakthrough therapy. COVID-19 is one cause of a lethal overactive immune response. But there are many causes for that lethal overactive immune response. One such cause is an aerosolizable biological weapon that can cause a similar fatal immune response. So you can aerosolize it over a stadium or a subway or something. And since Covarist acts at the end point of that, it acts as an off switch to the overactive immune response, and it can treat both. So because it can serve as an antidote to that biological weapon and as a cure for COVID potentially, we contacted the US Biomedical Advanced Research Development Authority, and we sent them the same packet, the same 450-page documentation we sent to the FDA, and BARDA has indicated a willingness to fund our phase 3 trials once we get our IND approval through the FDA. So our human data is unpublished, and to our knowledge, we're the only group in the world with human data using this API combination in COVID-19 patients, giving us first mover advantage. 4 sets of patent attorneys in 2 countries have worked on our IP, generating multiple strong patent applications for use, method, and for composition. US law would grant us exclusivity for marketing for a product once approved by the FDA for 3 to 5 years. Because there are no other drugs as effective in late-stage COVID treatment space, we expect that we'll be the standard of care once we're approved, and thus we expect early and broad adoption. Bottom line is our IP is well protected and our monopoly position is strongly defensible. Negotiating powerful strategic partnerships. I removed the names because I was advised to do so. But this is a slide really goes to use of funds. Funds are going to be to help us partner with those companies that help us get through this FDA process to IND approval. And so the letter the FDA sent back asking us to do for improvement in specific things, that's what these funds are for. These are all very well-respected companies, some of which are subsidiaries of very large pharma companies that we're looking to partner with. The Roseman University is a local school of pharmacy here. We've been in talks with, and University of Nevada, Reno School of Pharmacology is run by the former governor, and one of my friends is talking to him about collaborating up there. They're planning maybe to give us some space up in Mesquite, Nevada. Science validation. So our science was reviewed by the former chairman of immunology at Stanford. He reviewed it on behalf of a pharmaceutical company that he sits on the board, of a publicly traded company that he sits on the board of. They offered to purchase us in shares, but we needed cash, so that didn't work out. A head of science and technology of a South American country flew up here to help us write the randomized control trial protocol. After he reviewed the data, he was a Harvard-trained immunologist. He's a professor of immunology in his country. The CEO of Promise Pharmaceuticals is on our board. He's reviewed our science, obviously, and he's in favor. He was instrumental in getting cyclosporin through the FDA. Cyclosporin is another immune modulatory molecule, so he knows that space. And then the senior program manager at TechWatch at BARDA also reviewed our technology favorably. The next slide I omitted, again, because I was advised to, but it's about pharma company validation. People are looking at us. We have, in the last week or two, there's been a lot more interest in our company. We spoke with a gentleman from a very large VC group that brought 50 to 60 companies public, apparently. That was a positive meeting, so they want to meet further. We had an offer for $6 million, so we had an offer from somebody to be the lead investor at $6 million on a $25 million capital raise at $100 million valuation. So we had a follow-up call with him. We're planning more meetings in the next few weeks. And then we had a meeting with another new VC fund. They offered to fill in the rest of it. But again, there's nothing in writing yet, and there are no checks in hand. So that's we're still, out fundraising because, until we have a check in hand, that's an important part of growing the company. Revenue projections. So revenue projections are, so the assumptions are that we are granted emergency use authorization late in 2022. It might be early 2023 if things go successfully. This assumes that we don't get purchased by BARDA. So the way BARDA purchases work apparently is BARDA evaluates the science and then advises the president, and then the president decides whether or not he's going to make the purchase. So assuming that for whatever reason, in spite of what they've said so far, that they decide not to, this is what revenue generation would look like if we were to make sales to hospitals. So we based it on the number of hospitals per year on a basis that the Covarist is the standard of care and that we could charge $500 per course of drug. The savings to the hospital in reduction in length of hospital stay is about $25,000 per patient. So it's possible to charge more, but Merck for their drug, which doesn't reduce hospital stay, got to $500 per course. And so we thought we'd be conservative with that. For the net present values that we show in the bottom corner, we had used a discount rate of 20%, just because early stage investors, need a much higher payback, like 10x or so. Our business model, obtain FDA emergency use authorization, sell a drug product to governments and hospitals, and then hopefully get IPO or continue production if that's a better model. We should hopefully have a more experienced SEO on by then. Funding roadmap and traction. So near-term revenues are the hope, and with a huge upside, we have raised about $750,000 at a $15 million valuation. With that, we were able to get our core IP work done through the multiple attorneys. We had the proof of concept clinical study and got our FDA submission done. The next fundraise is to get to primarily our IND approval through the FDA. So to get our pharmacology, pharmacodynamics, toxicology, stability. We've been told by the companies that we're negotiating the contracts with that can get done as quickly as 10 months, as quickly as 7 months, but on the outside 10 months. Once we get through the IND stage, we expect that we'll begin the phase 3 trial. The phase 3 trial, we think we can complete in 2 to 3 months. At that phase, once we're starting that phase 3 trial, we will ask for emergency use authorization. If that's granted, then we can start sales. We expect BARDA to follow through and to provide funding for the phase 3 trial. And hopefully they provide a government, advocate for government purchase. Since the American Pandemic Preparedness document and its 5 pillars of need for the country in this pandemic, published in September 2021, signed by the Assistant to the President on Science and Technology and the Assistant to the President on National Security Affairs, describes what they need in a therapeutic. And the therapeutic that they describe essentially outlines what our drug does. So we think we're a good match, and that's why we think the BARDA sent that document to us. After that, the goal would be global distribution, so maybe sales to foreign governments. We have one of our board members is on former member of U.S. Commercial Services with a lot of experience selling to foreign governments and setting up distribution licensing agreements. And then some of the rest of the cash raises, we have 3 additional technologies that are all COVID related that we would pursue development with, either with cash funded by the sale or with some of the remaining funds. The team. I'm Dr. Nagy. I'm a board chairman of the board for this company. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've served in a lot of government boards and founded a bank. And Christine Levitt is our interim CEO. She has a tremendous amount of clinical experience and outstanding interpersonal skills relating with our investors and all of the subcontractors we're talking to. Alec Goldstein is the CEO of Promise Pharmaceuticals. It's a publicly traded pharmaceutical company out of Canada. They work on Alzheimer's disease and protein misfolding. He's got 30 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry and helped with get cyclosporin through the FDA. Eric Henderson is with the Department of Commerce and has worked for the Bush family for a long time and an investment banker and very, very knowledgeable guy. The advisory board, Manuel Baldeon is the Harvard-trained PhD from Ecuador who came up and helped us with the randomized control trial. Maggie has tremendous contacts throughout all of South America. Introduced us to the chief science officer for the Eli Lilly, essentially of Brazil, and she serves as chief operating officer for Cano Health, which is a publicly traded healthcare firm. Ibrahim introduced us to some VCs in San Francisco, and they have a company that does encryption. They do work with the NSA. And Wayne has a slew of COVID testing companies all over the country right now that's publicly traded. And that's for the other technologies that we have. He's interested in that. Forward-looking statement is just, the disclaimers. And that's our company. Thank you for taking time to listen to us today. I appreciate it. I'm open to questions.
Dr. Nagy, thank you so much. And coming to a global summit for Startup Showcase, I would welcome my fellow judges to ask questions, and then I'd probably go at the very end, depending on the time.
I have 2 quick questions, just a confirmation. First one is ETA to be ready for the market. I think it's the 7 to 10 months, but I'm just looking for the confirmation if that's the case.
That's what we're hoping. We anticipate that that's when the manufacturing process for the drug will be validated, and we can get a lot of the other stuff that the FDA requires done within that time. So that's what it looks like right now.
Do you expect this should work against future variants as well?
Yeah, it's not specific to any specific form of COVID. We work at the end stage of it, and the process by which the drugs act as an antiviral is generic to really all viruses, or
Thank
most
you.
viruses, not all viruses,
Thank
most
you.
viruses.
And my second question is related to comparison of your drug to other drugs. If I understand it correctly, you are the only drug that cures the late stage COVID, as opposed to Pfizer, Paxlovid, or I'm not sure how to read it,
Yeah,
which treats the early stage.
yeah.
Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding of the disease. There's an early phase of viral replication in COVID, and most people get over that without having to go to the hospital. Some people develop an overactive immune response that causes a pulmonary failure and leads to hypoxia that causes them to have to be in the hospital. Those are the patients we're treating. So if you're in the hospital, if you're sick, if you're hypoxic, this drug appears to help,
Thank you.
or appears that it should help.
Or Doreen, you can go ahead.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm not sure if I can see what are the fellow judges. Okay, I don't see, Martina, do you see her?
Hmm.
We want to give a fair chance.
I'm wondering if something happened to her internet. I
Okay,
don't see
sure.
her either.
Dr. Nagy, walk us through what's your experience so far with FDA?
Our experience with the FDA, we got some FDA consultants early on in 2020. They advised us on what an appropriate strategy would be, what the FDA processes were. We filled out the 1571 forms and then filled out essentially a complete IND application. We submitted that along with our pre-IND letter to the FDA. The FDA responded back to us and said, okay, you need to supply the following things. And we said, okay, in order to supply those following things, we were going to need a substantial amount of funding.
Got it. Are you based in Nevada, Vegas area?
That's correct, sir. Yes, that's my hometown.
Okay. Because in Silicon Valley, there is a specific team actually very dedicated to startups, FDA, which really accelerates. The reason I was saying was since you're waiting for 7 to 8 months. So tell us what inspired you actually? You're a serial entrepreneur. So what inspired you to start this company?
I guess mostly I had the knowledge, and around May I realized I had what appeared to work, and that honestly wasn't enough by itself to motivate me to continue, because it's a lot of work to start a company. But I have an office manager. She's a very tough lady. She's not afraid of anything, and she her life was altered when COVID happened. She was terrified every day, and she just lived in this constant fear. I have another friend. He's this huge, big military guy, and he's the kind of guy you'd never think would be afraid of anything. He turned into a shut-in, and just the fear that was gripping people. Normally, those are people who have my back. When there's a problem, and this is a problem that I could solve. So I thought it's an obligation I have. I'd have to go and carry the water when they can't carry it. It's America, right? It's how we do.
Yes, absolutely. No, I personally believe that, I would say this whole research of COVID, if you look at all these vaccines, which we know a lot of, remarkable outcomes in 10 months or 1 year, but there's a lot of work which has done multiple hundred years ago, the research which has carried forward, and that's how we could accelerate all these vaccines under a year. So we really have to, it's a combined collective intelligence. So let's talk about your um, investment strategy. So what is the route you are targeting? Can you go back to that? That will be my final question.
Um,
I love your team, by the way. Wonderful team.
oh, thank you. So yeah, the investment strategy was right now we have I've been advised that by some folks from a friend from Goldman Sachs introduced me to another investment banker, and so and we talked to some folks from Demi Colton who do the Biotech showcase next week, and so their advice was that we do have a lead investor for a $25 million capital raise with a valuation at 100 million. And so this week I met somebody, and he offered to be the lead investor. He has a viral testing company, and he has many successful companies. I explained to him what our company was. He had his science there guy with him when we were talking, and the science guy validated everything I was saying for him. And so he offered. We'll see, if that follows, if that goes through. There's a conversation, but there was a follow-up call, and he wants to meet next week. So,
are you coming to the bio thing, the JPM next week?
Well, it's all virtual. I had planned to fly out to. I was in San Francisco yesterday, actually, at the with O'Neill there at the offices But I flew back here. There was a funeral today here in Las Vegas that I had to come back for.
Got it. Got it. Okay, if you come back, there's something called Bio Connections with the JPM week. I'd love to introduce you to a couple of people. So I think with that particular note, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Response time is 7 seconds. Email is 7 years. How to get. So with that particular note, I would, Martina, do you have any final questions? Or are you okay?
I'm good at this point. And we have Doreen here. Just her name is Dr. Dora, so she is here.
One last question I always ask then. So what is your ask for the individual investor, and what would be the return of investment?
Well, the ask at this point, I think we're asking, so whatever investment comes in, it's at a valuation of 100 million, but we don't have a minimum investment. I guess we haven't considered that part. There are some folks who are thinking about coming in. At this stage, I haven't, but I don't have a minimum amount, if that's your question.
And then the return, the ROI?
Well, the ROI is so the ROI is, if we get to IPO phase, this is the stage with net present value. So the net present value would be one way to value the company. And so that valuation is at 2.2 billion. So if we're valued at 100 million, obviously we're undervaluing what we could assume as a value, but we need cash now, and we understand that there's risk in drug companies, and so 20x on the money is most people will be pretty happy with that. We feel pretty confident we can deliver that. We just got an evaluation in today from a fellow Juan Molta, and he is an analyst. He has a company called Moderation Investments, and so he did an independent financial analysis, a projection on what he thought the market value was, and he thought it was much more than the NPV that I put here. Christine, can you talk about that? Are you still on the call, Christine?
Oh, hi. Yeah. So his valuation came in at 2.3 billion for 2022 pre-revenue. So, and he used calculations that I can't discuss because I'm not that good at this calculations. But it increased over. He projected out. So any interested investors, we're happy to share that analysis and what he did to come up with that.
Thank you.
In conclusion, to all the founders, actually, it all depends on the lead investor. So in this particular case, Dr. Nagy had not closed a lead investment, and he was fortunate. I think he's fortunate enough to get another one to get that evaluation. Typically, that would be in the range of, like you are asking, 100 million. It would be approximately 200 to 275 million to give that evaluation of $1 billion that you come up with, which is good because investors know how to get to the speed so they can get their money back in liquidation, since you are interested in IPO. So that's a very good segue to have a very thoughtful leadership. So Dr. Nagy and the team, Christine, thank you so much for being